And if you're waiting for somebody else to be in action, I mean, you're just going to be stuck all the time. And so, I've learned over time that I need to be in the ready position. I never know what's coming at me.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, Show Up. My name is Daryl Dittmer. As someone who built financial freedom from scratch, I understand what's possible, as there was a time when I thought I had only a life of mediocrity ahead of me. Drinking, drugs, and zero confidence plagued me. The one thing that changed my life is when I decided to do things differently and give success a chance. And I don't just mean financial success, I mean life success. I started to show up to my life and my career, and one step after another provided me the life I never thought possible. At any age, life begins to change when you start to show up. Welcome to my podcast.
Today I'm joined by Mike Van Pelt. Mike is a founder, author, speaker, and coach. As the host of the True Man podcast and a mentor, Mike has worked with countless men to help them break free from doubt, distraction, and disconnection, strengthen relationships with their families, teams, and faith, create a roadmap for purpose-driven success without burning out, and step into leadership with confidence and clarity. Mike helps men align with their purpose. Welcome, Mike. Great to see you.
Daryl, it is awesome to be here with you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we could put it together. I knew there was a pretty cool alignment, when we talked the other day, and I'm a big fan of man being men.
Yeah. Well, we need more of it. I don't think that. It's not something that's commonly talked about, and a lot of us weren't raised to really understand, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And unfortunately, probably a rabbit hole. I won't go down it unless you want to, but that whole toxic masculinity thing is the thing that seems to come to the forefront, and it's just ridiculous. Just a lot of people want to make men be bad men, and that's just simply not the case. But, we need men rallying together for each other to help us better our best,
100% agree. There's an innate purpose for me as a man and things that I am absolutely responsible for in this life because of the fact that I'm a man. And I truly do. I love that responsibility because it fits and it resonates, and it's what it's about for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Daryl. And I think, that comes, a little bit of that probably comes from the school of hard knocks, right? Like, we got to go through it a little bit in order to figure it out. And I think that's how we do it. And then combine that. If you get around the right men, the right oriented men, as I like to say, that can kind of help you along that journey, mentor you along that way, and you keep each other accountable, man, you're destined for great things.
100% agree. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. And I feel like this may have to do with the toxic masculinity thing and that sort of rabbit hole, which, whatever, that is what it is. Our job is probably not that. Our job is, what can we do for men who are looking to be men? But I was reading this morning, and I have not read this book. I'm not exactly sure when it came out, but I'm going to say at least 35 years. And it's The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck.
Wow. Listen to you. Yeah. You're pulling a book out of the woodwork there. Yeah.
Old school, right?
Yeah.
Not as old as the Bible, but it's probably, 40, 45 years old. But anyway, so I for some reason, I just felt drawn to read that again. And the first 3 words in that book, which I've quoted to people over many, many years, are life is difficult.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, we have to sometimes we just have to get used to it, but then we can embrace it. And I feel like that's a big part of showing up as a man in this life.
It's interesting. As you were saying that, I was thinking about my book that I put out, True Man, True Ways, a roadmap of discovery to the masculine heart. And I'll tell you where a little bit of that came from, and specifically why I picked the cover. So when my buddy and I, Paul Bailey, started our men's small group back in South Carolina, we used to have this funny little thing. Like, we may call each other and go, "Hey, do you want to go get coffee?" Well, coffee didn't mean going down to the local Starbucks. Coffee meant we were going to hop in the car and go for a road trip. And we lived on the North Carolina border. So we would go to this coffee shop up in North Carolina, just over the border, just to get us into the mountain air, called Open Road Coffee, which is, perfectly named. And the whole point of those road trips really was not so much to go get the coffee. It was the road trip. It was an opportunity to be trapped in the car together, right? Talking about life, checking in with each other. How's your family doing? How are you doing? And really an opportunity to spend time with each other and get to know each other. And so the whole idea of roads and road maps and traveling through life and the journey is something that it always captures me, because it wasn't just the going for the coffee. It was doing life together. And somewhere along the line, when Paul and I first met, we were interested in that journey. We were interested in a life of more, in a life of freedom, and understanding what did that mean. We weren't sure. And so, we took a lot of road trips together and went a lot of places together and had a fun time just being in the car. And I got to be honest, I think that's one great thing men can do, is just hop in the car and go someplace. It drops the facade. It drops everything. It's magical. And you just, so take those long trips for coffee. I encourage it.
Yeah. You brought something to mind for me, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, just to be able to connect and spend that time. But what it brought to mind for me was after college, I think we were men by that time.
Some of us never grow up, but that's beside the point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, 100%. I'm completely cool with that. We went across the country and we spent 30 some days and 10,000 miles, and just, it was a long coffee trip, but we were both basically broke. I had maxed out all my credit cards on the trip. You get college credit cards, there's like $1,000.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. Worst thing they could possibly do to a college kid is give them credit. But anyway, they did. And but it was a beautiful trip, and he and I, for whatever we received out of that trip, brotherhood and laughs, and seeing how we deal with things, and that was a very memorable, cool adventure.
Yeah, gosh, that is so good. When I went to I commonly tell this story. When I was in high school, I only had one dream. I wanted to be a college basketball coach. That was it, man. I love, and as we're recording this, we're into March. It's tournament season. I love this time of year. It's just so magical. You have about 3 weeks and 4 weeks in there when the tournament rolls around. Spring's here. The Masters golf tournament's coming up, and it's just so awesome. But I love college basketball, and I wanted to be a college basketball coach. And, and so what I remember the most about being in the locker room is the locker room when I was back in college. and I was a manager on the basketball team. I couldn't play anymore. I wasn't tall enough and I couldn't jump high enough, but I wanted to be around the game. And the best way I could do it was to become a manager on the basketball team. And that gave me an opportunity to get around the game and understand the game. And I did it at a very high level at a Division I school. And I cannot tell you a lot about the games. I have 2 or 3 games in there, and it's spotty on the games. I remember certain players. But what I remember the most is the locker room. I remember the preparation, the game film, prior to the game, after the game, what it felt like. Just armoring ourselves up to go to war together and preparing to go to war together, go to war together, so to speak. Figuratively, of course, right? We're talking games here. But I remember that so much, and it meant so much to me. And I think I spent about half my adulthood trying to recapture what it felt like to be in the locker room and enjoying that game preparation. And I finally found that, by the way, but a whole other story. But I think there's something unique about men and being in environments like that where we're working together for a common goal. And I think it's critically important that we figure out ways to recapture that. I think it's one of the reasons why I commonly talk about getting involved in men's small group and really digging in deep and asking more than inch deep questions and getting to know each other. And how can I improve myself as a man, as a husband, these types of things, and really digging in there. And of course, anytime you can dig into scripture, that certainly helps too, because, you can really learn a lot by getting in the word of God and bringing that in the middle of everything. So I tell that story about basketball because I just think as men, it's something that we, sports in general are something we inherently love. But usually we see the end product, the game. And the game's just a small, minute piece of it.
Right. Yeah, it certainly is. And I was, well, a long story, but I'll keep it short since we don't have too much time overall. But, I was fortunate when I was in high school, I played basketball and I got a letter from from University of Wisconsin, actually. And they and it was University of Wisconsin Stout. So it was D2, but it was, I feel like it was kind of a feeder for University of Wisconsin, but anyway, so I got this letter and I was a mess in high school and I just ignored it and I didn't care. And then I went through drug treatment and then I got sober and I was like, you know what? I want to play basketball. So I called this very local Division III school and I was able to play and, met with the coach, all this sort of thing. And I played for 4 years. The only reason I say that is because the most difficult, and it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. And not all of it was great because, you win, you lose, whatever. It's just, you learn how to deal with things.
Yeah.
And with grace, winning with grace, losing with grace, all those kinds of things. But the hardest part of that for me was when we were at our final banquet and, I was a big rebounder and, I scored whatever, but I loved rebounding. I love the blue collar part. I love, just hitting it hard and battling, like you mentioned, right? You're going to war. And I thought of it like that because I have a lot of anger issues from my past. But anyway, so that showed up in the rebounding. And anyway, the hardest part for me, because everybody looked like, oh, Daryl's just, tough guy, this and that, comes from this and that. But I cried like a baby at that banquet because I didn't want to leave my brothers who I had spent those years battling with. And that was a big, big thing for me. It was interesting how it just came out of me.
I think that we all want that in our life. I'm not, my dad went to Vietnam. I have deep admiration for our American military and what they do to keep us safe each and every day. most of which I just think is incredible. And I don't even want, I'm not one of these guys that really wants to know what's going on in the world, because I think if I did, I'd never come out of my basement. But I have deep admiration for our American military, and I love so many different military films. And I think one of my favorite ones to watch was the Band of Brothers, and there's just so many of them. But you know what gets me about these movies so much of the time is that even when these guys, deep into their lives, and they'll go back and they'll go to the cemeteries where, World War II vets going to Normandy for the first time and seeing somebody that they fought side by side with. And you see that emotion, that genuine love for the person that they fought beside. And, when we talk about masculinity, that's masculinity.
That's the pinnacle.
That is masculinity in its finest. And so, I think that there's something to be said and not forgotten. It's funny to this day. I remember being in high school and we had a very small football team. We had 30 people on our varsity football team. We were the smallest team in the conference, and they used to call us the Dirty 30, man. But we battled like hell, against schools that were twice as big as us. And for the most part, we went toe to toe most of the time. And, to this day, it's really hard for me to forget those guys, because we were doing something really we had no business doing. We shouldn't have been in that conference. I mean, we were really outnumbered. A lot of these teams had better athletes, across the board. We had a small number, finite, of pretty good athletes. But I think the thing, as I reflect back on, my life, we fought. We never gave up, even though we knew what we were up against. And man, I love each and every one of those guys. And I'm at an age now where we're losing some of those guys. And and so that's hard to see. But there's something about being in the trenches with other guys, especially when you're the underdog, that builds tremendous character, love, and appreciation for that guy next to you. And I'll never forget going to battle with those guys.
Yeah, that's, you bring up Band of Brothers. That was absolutely probably my favorite cinematic thing ever done.
Yeah, it's good.
Absolutely beautiful. And because of, the relationships and how close those guys were. And yeah, it really was brothers. And that was absolutely beautiful. But, when you were talking, the thing that came to mind, and I'll ask you a question right after this, because we've just started rapping. It's been great. I'll get to the question in a second, but I think, showing up is synonymous with exactly what you were describing, which is, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog, right?
That's right, man.
That's what showing up is.
Yeah. And, if in anything I do, I want to do everything I can to help somebody be their best. I'm looking over at the guy to my right, I'm working the guy to my left, and I'm talking guys here, but it could be a woman in business or whatever that I'm doing these days. And I want to help them be their best. And I hope they're helping me be my best, so that whatever we're working on is the highest quality it can possibly be, and that we're raising each other up. And, that you have to be in action in order to do that. And I find myself telling people a lot, again, I go back to my athletic roots. I mean, what I was taught, okay, when I wasn't a catcher, they stuck me in the outfield, because back in the day I had some wheels, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where they went, but they had some wheels. So they would stick me in the outfield. And, when the pitcher was getting ready to pitch, you were in motion, right, left, right. You were stepping with the pitcher. Why? You need to be in the ready position. You need to be alert. You need to be ready for the play. And, I think life's that way. You got to be in action, right, left, right. Too many people just stay stuck and they're never in the ready position. And so when the pitch gets thrown, the ball's coming at them, they're just like, now what do I do? And, life really, it's about being responsible. And that's something that we don't talk about in our culture anymore. Nobody wants to be responsible for anything, but you got to be responsible for your position, for being ready for the next play. And I know we're using sports analogies here, but the reality is they fit perfectly into life. And too many of us are waiting for somebody else to be in action. And if you're waiting for somebody else to be in action, I mean, you're just going to be stuck all the time. And so, I've learned over time that I need to be in the ready position. I never know what's coming at me. The next greatest person, podcasting is a great example. I met my mentor podcasting. He asked to be on my podcast. I met him. And, it's been one of the greatest relationships of my life. I thought I was good at leadership, and I found out I was probably mediocre at best. And he's taken me to a whole other level. And so, I was ready for him when it came my way. And, I picked up the phone, I called him, I said, can you help me learn more? And, and the relationship developed and, ultimately it will be the biggest and best business decision of my life to learn from him. So you got to be ready. You never know when the next thing's coming along, but heck, I don't know about you, Daryl, but I see a lot of people, they just content to be stuck, and I don't understand it, but.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a huge, I'm noticing as I'm reading this The Road Less Traveled that when that was written, it was, when I was coming up and that was, it was like, dude, you got to keep trying. You got to keep, getting out there.
Yeah.
When M. Scott Peck says life is difficult, what he really means is the pitches are coming, whether you're ready or not.
Yeah, right.
They're going to keep coming. Some might be at your head. Some might be at your feet. Some might be right down the middle, but you at least have to stand in the batter's box and get ready. So I'll go into a quick question.
Yeah.
And this is one I love to ask because I really feel like it helps our listeners understand different stories and different ways and times and, circumstances where people had to show up for themselves. So the question is this, if you would please indulge me, sir. Tell me about an event or a time in your life that caused you to show up for your life in a different way.
It's such a great question because for me personally, I remember this like it was yesterday. But if I'm counting back the clock, I think it was about 21 years ago. And I was really struggling with my career. I was not happy. I was not fulfilled. And I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. And I remember I had come off, I had been in the financial services and insurance industry, and I went through a 6-month leadership training course and absolutely loved it. Just absolutely loved everything that we did in that class. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table telling my wife about this. And I remember just saying to her, I'm not happy in my career. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what's next, but I love what I learned by doing this classwork and this training over the last 6 months. Now what? What do I do? And she said, she'd been was in a senior level position at the time. And she said, Mike, stay home with the kids, figure out what you want to do with your life and take care of the kids and we'll figure this out. And so I became a stay-at-home dad. I took care of the kids and I started working with a career coach because I wanted to find out what what life had in store for me. And ultimately I decided, hey, education is important. I'm telling my kids, even at that point, I mean, they were, babies virtually, how important education was. And I'm like, you're going to be a hypocrite. You didn't finish your college degree. And so ultimately I worked with the career coach, went back. Not only did I get my undergraduate degree, I got my graduate degree. And those were baby steps, really getting me to where I was today. But I'll never forget that moment sitting at the kitchen table with my wife, just crocodile tears running down my face. And I remember thinking at that point, I'm down at the bottom of the mountain and it's time to start scaling. And everything that I've done from that point on, including some of my faith experiences and coming close and really deepening my relationship with Christ. But it all started right there at that kitchen table, having that discussion with my wife, going, man, I know I got to start over again, but I think this is what I need to do. And it gets me to where I am today, and I'm a better man for it. It didn't feel like it at the time, but I'm a better man for it. And I think what I've learned is the Bible talks a lot about patience and perseverance. And there's a very real reason why it does, because that's critically important to our being and our success. And, we live in a now world. Some people refer to it as a microwave world, right? I mean, we get our packages in 2 days. We get our food warmed in less than a minute. We have fast internet, fast cars, but life really doesn't work that way. It requires a deep amount of patience and perseverance. And, it's the tortoise of the hare story. And, perseverance wins. Consistency wins. It's a major, major piece of life that in this now world, we sometimes just want to scrap, thinking there's got to be a shortcut.
Right. And it's funny because our entire world, like you said, is to try to make things easier. And I can make cooking a microwave burrito easier, but I can't make being successful easier in the entirety of my life. And I don't care if that's financially, with my health, with my mental health, with my emotional health. Like, I can't make those things instantly happen. I can't put myself in a microwave and make myself better. Actually, it might make me worse. But I have to utilize the tools, and I look at it like, life is a principle-oriented existence. And I don't want to say game because I don't want to cheapen it, but it's a principle-oriented existence.
Yeah.
And that's timeless. Like, there's no expiration date on living life in a principled manner, which is, I believe, exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of the big things I've been working on as of late is it's funny how these things come together. I was working on a keynote speech and we started talking about a men's summit. The next thing you know, we had put together something called the American Family Renaissance. And really how that all came together was talking about the importance of the values in this country that had been lost. And we named off three that Zig Ziglar used to talk about quite a bit: God, family, and country. And, why is that important? Well, we've drifted from that. We've drifted from God. We've drifted from our families. I mean, we put so many things in front of our families. It's a small percentage. I have news for you, man. It's a small percentage of people that make it to the major leagues. And so all that money you're spending on travel baseball is probably for you and not your kid. But, we've got to get back to families. And I've been talking a lot lately. You heard me mention the dinner table earlier. The dinner table is where it happens. This is where your kids learn how you operate with your wife and significant other. And this is where your kids learn how to agree and disagree and how to talk and how to learn, how to Bible study, how to play games. All these things occur at the family dinner table. I so distinctly remember hearing my grandmother tell story after story, at the dining room table when we would sit there and play Scrabble with her on Sunday afternoons, and so all of these things, and country, right? We're just too busy yelling at each other. You're either on the right or the left, and that's a bunch of hoo-ha. Most of us land in the middle somewhere. And, we really need to get back to talking with each other, not flipping each other off. That's just a complete waste of everybody's time. And, here's something I firmly believe too, because, it seems like most of these guys and gals go to Washington, D.C. to write books and be on television. They don't seem to go there with goodwill intent to do something for the people of this country. And so, who's that on? Well, it's on the American people. It's not on those people that go to Washington, D.C. It's up to us to hold these people accountable. And we've got to get back to God, family, and country in this nation, or we're going to continue to have what we have, complete disarray. And so the values, to me, the things that I grew up with, gosh, we used to talk about, Daryl, I bet you did too. You used to hear the word pride all the time. Take pride in what you do. Have pride in your school. I don't even know what happened to that word. It like disappeared off the face of the earth,
Yeah.
And I know pride can be bad, but I mean, there's a good aspect of pride and responsibility that is extremely important. And these are values that nobody's teaching them. And, it's something that I want to engage men on, because I think if we engage men on them, they can take it back to their families. They can take it back to their wives. They can take it back to their communities, and we can do some good in this country.
100% agree. Yeah. And I'm with you on all aspects of that. We are so incredibly blessed to have the country that we have.
Oh man. Yeah.
And the only thing that can take that away from us is us.
Yeah.
If we're not stepping up. And, you mentioned a couple things, and when you talked about talking to your wife about changing, your sort of scope of what you're going after in life, and the crocodile tears and all that sort of thing. But that's what it takes. It takes sometimes, most of the time, in my experience, I've got to hit some pain. I've got to hit a place of pain before I'm willing to do what it takes to show up differently.
Yeah.
Before I'm willing to say, you know what, I've had enough. And so it brings me to something I saw on your site, and I'll quote this. It says, because sometimes the breakthrough isn't about working harder, it's about seeing the battle differently, which I think is exactly what you're referring to when you told that story.
Well, sometimes you got to flip the narrative, what I've experienced in my life is that required me to go look in the mirror. And, there have been times, and there are still times, I go look in the mirror, and I do it intentionally. And I don't like what's looking back at me. And it's not a matter of, we were talking about being stuck there. I want to know how I can change what I don't like so I can move it forward. As a person who's a leader, a speaker, a mentor, and really wants to step forward into that role and enjoys it, if I'm not modeling it or being the person that I'm talking about, well, then I'm a fake, a fraud. And what's interesting about that, there's a long history. Let's just pick on TV evangelists. They're easy, of these guys, that did something nefarious, whether it was cheating on their wife or, stealing money or whatever the heck they did. There's a long list of stuff like that. And if you're going to be a leader in this world, you better model it. You better have some integrity, have some backbone. It's not hard to do, but again, I hate to circle back to this, but we live in a time and a place where people play victim. They don't take responsibility. They shoot first. Well, if I get caught, I'll just go out and apologize. And I'm all for second chances. Don't get me wrong. But, if I'm going to be what I'm calling men to do, I need to step up myself. And not only am I looking in the mirror, I have people in my life that have permission to speak into me if I step off the beam, and sometimes that doesn't taste very well to hear. But, I have some big dreams, big goals, big things that I'm working on. And it's important that at least for me, I'll speak into me, that I live what I'm talking about. That's authenticity. That's keeping it real. And that's critically important to me. And what I have found, Daryl, and I'm sure you found this too, and we touched on this a little bit, I feel extremely free in my life. I feel relaxed with who I am. And there was a long period of my life where I didn't. I was trying to be something I wasn't. And I've just gotten to the point where I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable with me, and I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm always going to be under construction. There's always room for improvement. And that's what I keep striving for. If you guys get a chance, I would encourage us, Daryl, if you've not seen this, it is a must see. So I think it's on Netflix. The Blue Angels have a documentary. It's either on Netflix or on Prime or something like that. But you got to go see the Blue Angels documentary. Incredible. These people are so precise, so incredible. And at one point in the scene, they're one of the guys just talking about, if we make a mistake, somebody dies. We're striving for perfection, but we know we'll never achieve it. But they're striving for it. And as men, that's what I encourage people to do. Jesus Christ walked the earth as a true man. He is the ultimate role model. We will never achieve what he did because we're human and we're sinners. But we should be striving to follow what he followed so that we can be the best possible men that we can be.
Yeah. And, I think the thing that people miss with things like the Blue Angel documentary, and, you mentioned freedom, and that's exactly how I feel when I wake up. I feel free. and part of the reason I feel free is because I know that there's no finish line.
Right.
There's no finish line. I just got to keep going and keep doing my best and keep showing up and, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the thing with the Blue Angels is that people miss the tens of thousands of hours of practice and perseverance and patience and, that it takes to be that precise and that good.
So they're the best, man.
Yeah. And I'm going to watch that. Something in me tells me I saw that, but I want to watch it again now that you mentioned it. Mike, we're coming up toward the end, and I very much appreciate the discussion and your wisdom and your sharing. And so let folks know how they can find you out there and find your work.
Yeah. Speaking of a work in progress, my website's always a work in progress. Sometimes, more than others, but the best way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, truemanlifecoaching.com. I have my podcasts out there, the books. You can be a part of our newsletter, the True Man Inner Circle. And that's where I try to be the keep everybody up to date. And in the near future, we'll have a lot of information regarding the American Family Renaissance Summit that I'm putting out there. I'm excited about that because we brought together some great speakers, and it's just going to be a half day thing, man. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have all the time in the day to listen to a lot of people. So we packed it tight with 6 top speakers, Scott Schilling and I. He's the man I'm partnering with on this, and so we'll have that out on the website here very shortly and soon as well. Very cool.
Very cool. Well, Mike, I very much appreciate you coming on, and great to have a chance to catch up and chat and just, I feel like we're so much in alignment with what we espouse in our lives. So I always appreciate
Daryl. Thank you for having me on. The only thing that we're not in alignment on is you have that Lions logo behind you, and I am a Green Bay Packers shareholder. So then there's that.
Nice. Nice. Well, we'll talk about that next time.
Thanks, Daryl. I appreciate it.
Mike. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Show Up podcast. To learn more about me, my coaching, or my books, please feel free to visit my website, DarylDittmer.com. DarylDittmer.com. Thank you.